This is the opening
The
scene.
opening scene. This is an actual location that we shot at that is a plantation. And then Hannah Beekler, our production designer, built the church on a plot of land that we scouted and positioned in the correct way that would be, you know, lovely for light. And this was shot on IMAX. And so this originally wasn't supposed to be shot on IMAX because it has a lot of dialogue in the scene.
Yeah.
And it's not a sync sound format. The camera is very loud. So Ryan decided, I think it might have been, you know, a few days before, you know, he called me, or I forget if he told me in person, he said, I think we should shoot that scene in IMAX. I'll talk to the actors and we'll figure out how to do ADR. I think it'll be better for it. And I was like, okay, great. And you know, so you have to shift logistics a bit, but it's my favorite scene. I always like to talk about this one because
Why is it your favorite?
I think it has a lot to do with the day that we shot it. So we shot it and we didn't complete, so we went back there. So I would say I spent 2 days on this set, you know, shooting this scene. And then there's another scene that's shot in the anamorphic 2.7.6 format. But the day that we were there, it really did feel like you were going back in time and you were in a church, and there was a choir, and everyone was dressed to perfection. It felt real. Like, I don't know how else to say it besides my body felt like I was witnessing an actual sermon in a service.
Yeah.
And the acting was so beautiful that I felt like I was just a bystander in the corner of the room watching this happen. We had the camera on a 50-foot movie bird, like telescoping crane. So that opening shot that you like is all off of a crane. And then when we were covering the action inside, I lit everything from the outside so the actors could move around. So it, you know, felt like a real space. And then I had the crane come in and out, you know, as it needed. And so we would shoot one direction, and then you would move the crane around the church and shoot from the other direction from the opening at the back. And, you know, all your lights are on the outside.
Yeah. I love that the interior of the church was all white.
Yeah. I feel like...
And I don't know why I love it, but I do.
It's beautiful, yeah. It was a beautiful choice, and I think I'm not afraid of, you know, a lot of people tease DPs that they're afraid of white because, you know, it overexposes easily. But I learned to love white working with Ruth Carter because in Wakanda Forever there's that procession, right? And everyone's dressed in white and the skin tones are very dark and there's a lot of difference in that contrast level. And so you really do have to kind of figure out your exposures, but...
But it's very dramatic.
It's very dramatic, exactly. And you never want to get in the way of that because those choices with the designer and the costume designer, they're being very thoughtful, so you want to support that. So I did like that choice too. And everyone aged everything beautifully on set, so it did look very real.
In the original script, this was supposed to be the opening scene.
Correct, yes. And I remember when I read it, because I read this script, Ryan sent it to me the night before I started photography on Last Showgirl. And I was in Vegas, and I read it, and I remember reading this sequence and getting so excited because it read like an old Western. It read like a kind of epic movie. And I remember asking him, I was like, where did you come up with that? And he's like, he wanted to just, you know, he thinks very big, and he's a very good writer, honestly. And I remember reading it going like, this is going to look awesome. And so...
you shot all of this at Golden Hour.
So, I love that you think that. Thank you for that.
No, you didn't?
Because Golden Hour lasts, I mean, it's like a 10-minute window of that beautiful setting and blue hour kind of moment. And it's vampire folklore, so it's on the page that, you know, he's burning and the sun is setting, and it's that scary time where once the sun sets, they're gonna come kill you. So because it takes a very long time to shoot things, as you know, this is shot over 2 days, and what happens is you shoot as much as you can in that beautiful hour, and then everything else you have to kind of logistically time out for the sun, light it and shape it, and then work on sky replacement. So throughout this sequence, there are sky replacement shots. Like, for instance, this shot, there's sky replacement because I shot this much earlier in the day. So I had to light it and be kind of cognizant of like what would happen in post. And working very closely with the VFX supervisor on that and making sure the skies match and that the color and the exposure and all of that stuff. And then obviously in the color grade, you're working with the DI colorist, who we had Kostas Theodosou, who does all the Christopher Nolan films. So he's very familiar with this format. And
so how hard is it to light him
That shot's for real. So the sun actually, you see it setting.
Yeah. But this is
That's lit. So
Yeah.
so as you can see, there's a key light off to the right side.
Yeah.
That's kind of lighting his face.
Yeah.
It's emulating kind of a kick off of the wood porch, right? So
Yeah.
kind of saying like the exposure from the sun is kicking off the porch and is lighting his face. And then I had a bunch of frames outside, like big negative, kind of taking down exposure, so that I could create a contrast that would mimic a later day contrast.
Yeah.
Because I knew that that shot was going to ultimately have a sky that was much darker and bluer and warm. But when I shot it, it was much brighter.
How hard is that to pull off?
I think you really do have to know what you're after. Like
Yeah.
if you have a very good idea of what you want, you can recreate, right? If
Yeah.
you don't know what you want, then it leaves a lot of unknowns for
Right,
post,
right.
and then they decide what they want. You know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah.
So I work very closely with the supervisor to like give references, give notes,
Yeah.
look at, he would send me, kind of early skies, and I said, no, that sky doesn't match. Like, make
Yeah.
it more blue or put more clouds, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But he had a lot of references, so we made sure we shot in camera as many skies, and if the sky looked good, I said, use the good sky.
Right.
So it's a real communication, throughout, even when you finish shooting.
They say the truth hurts, so I lied to you. Yes, I lied to you.
To see how many people have responded to this sequence is really cool.
Yeah.
It was very special on the page, though, so I think
Was it? It was all there on the page?
it was all on the page. So in a recent interview, Ryan mentioned that he recalls he put it in italics because it was something that needed to be figured out, and that it meant something, he was
Yeah.
differentiating it from the other stuff. But it was beautifully written. It was very imaginative and kind of, took you on this kind of surrealistic departure from, what was before it.
Yes.
So it was just a lot of conversation with him. I think early on, it's a huge logistical challenge that a lot of department heads need to meet on and figure out, but it meant something to him. And I think when you execute something like this, like a oneer, you don't want to feel the hand of the creator. You don't want to feel the technical.
Yes.
You want to make it so good that it feels like a dream, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't take you out. So
Yeah.
I feel it was successful because a lot of people have responded and it's resonated. But
Yeah. And
Yeah.
this may be the most talked about scene in the film.
yeah, it is. No, it's special. And I think we knew that, in prep, and then when we shot it, it's all on a Steadicam. My Steadicam operator did a beautiful job because, as we were talking about, the camera's very heavy, and not many people have flown a Steadicam for IMAX. And so it starts out in the 2:7:6 format, and then the ratio opens up,
Yeah.
and then it becomes more of a dream. And then it cuts to, we shot the night portion, after it tips back down, after the
Yeah.
roof burns. We shot that at a different location off of a crane that was on 100 feet of track. And I love how it introduces the vampires. And then the music as well.
Yeah.
It's very powerful. And so this takes a lot of rehearsal, and there was previs in the beginning of the,
I love
Prep.
how, one of the things I loved about it is how people suddenly reveal themselves in here.
yeah,
And I mean, you don't see it first, and like right here.
yeah, yeah. No, this was on a 50 millimeter IMAX lens, and the focus pulling is impeccable, which is really nice because you really have to work with, like Ryan's working with the operator and the focus puller on, when people are entering and exiting frame, the shift has to happen in a real elegant way
Yeah.
with the introduction of whoever's
Yeah.
new. It's a very hard format to pull focus on, so I forget how many takes we did of the first section. Like there's a stitch right here.
Right here.
Yeah. There has to be, because of the time restriction, but there's 3 shots that make up this interior sequence.
Right. It's essentially one shot, but shot in 3, because of the limitations of the film,
Yes.
shot in 3 pieces.
Yeah, 3 pieces for the interior, technically, because it ends up tipping back down into the night exterior.
Yeah.
Total 5, because you have these 3,
Yeah.
and then it goes to the roof, which is a VFX takeover.
Yeah.
Which we actually did burn the roof, but you have to put those together and obviously clean up, because it looks like it's out the space. And then when it tips back down, that's 1 shot. So 3 shots plus the roof plus the 1 shot on the crane. But Ryan loves these type of shots. Like, I would say, like, telling a very poignant piece of the story in one shot. He really enjoys that.
How many times did you have to rehearse this?
So when we have the meetings, we give a bunch of notes, right? And
Yeah.
logistics, like for VFX supervisor, and then we make a previs, which is kind of like just assume like a little video game of what we kind of want to do. We put all the dimensions of the set in there, and you watch it and see how it feels and looks, and then you do a rehearsal on stage on the weekend. So then you'd get the operator there and you would rehearse and pretend and see how it feels and looks, and get that in a right zone. And then on the day, Ryan is, directing all of that with the choreographer and with Ludwig, working out the timing of the music. And I think I just did a Q&A where Raphael Sadiq, who wrote this song, was there, and he was mentioning that when we were shooting it, the timing was off in some segments, and then Ludwig was like, "Oh, we'll just fix the song." You know what I mean? Because everyone's working together to make it kind of feel cohesive. So we erased the track. Obviously, you would see the track because it's on track. So we erased that VFX, and then it cuts to the shot.
Yeah, these guys, man.
Jack O'Connell's amazing. Yeah.
So creepy.
Yeah. Everyone, the trio here, they were so good.